Hey guys, so today we are going to be working on coil building. So coil building is a technique where we will be rolling out coils of clay to be able to build our structure. So what's the first step? The first step that we're going to go through is we're going to just take off a piece of clay and we're going to make our base, right? So I like to first start off by rolling out little base, circle, and then I'm going to go ahead and begin to flatten it out. Now, if you're working at home, you want to put this on something. You want to have a surface that you can work on, right? So I'm going to make my base. I'm just going to keep flattening it out, kind of just like this. And why do you want to work on a surface? Because if you're on a surface like what I'm on right now, and it sticks to it, it's going to be hard to remove it. So, once again, rolling it out. And let's just say this is my base. Okay. So, now that I have my base, I want to just kind of put it off to the side. And I'm going to grab another piece of clay. Just work it, and I am going to begin rolling it out. Now, when I roll out my clay, one of the ways I want to roll is I want to open my hand, close my hand, open, close, just like this. Applying pressure. As I'm opening it, I'm pushing it out. As I'm closing it, pushing it in, just like this. So now I got my coil roughly around the same thickness. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my coil and I'm going to add it to my base. Now, one of the things that you can do is scoring. So, for instance, I have right here a needle tool with me, right? You may not have a needle tool at home. So if you're using basic supplies, you can use a fork like this, plastic fork, a regular fork, anything of the sort. So all you're going to do is you're going to just kind of create these little lines just like this. And you're going to almost like you're irritating the top of it, right? This is called scoring. Then I'm going to take my coil and I'm going to lay it on top and I'm going to wrap it around. Now, I have my first layer of my coil built, right? I'm going to need to keep going. So, I have my coil built right here. I'm going to go on and I'm going to do my next coil. So, rolling out just like this. The longer you make it, the more it will wrap around. Okay, so now I'm going to bring this guy back over. And I'm going to just lay it right on top. Now, as I'm going, I want to just make sure keeping it where I'm not breaking it, right? And because my clay is so soft, I can kind of blend it in because it's fresh clay. I can kind of just blend it in together just like this. So one of the things that I go from this point is I want to make sure that there are no coils on the outside. So this is why we need our fork, because we're going to take our fork and we're just going to begin to just scrape up. Supporting the inside, we're going to agitate and scrape up. Just like this. Make sure to hold it in place. Just like that. And we're going to just continue to scrape up. Now, it would be easier if you had your clay on something like a plate, maybe a paper plate will work. But I just want to make sure I can scrape up, which will come back and we'll begin to smooth this out, okay? So now that I scraped up with my fork, just like this, I have my first layer. So now that I have my first layer, I want to think about how it's undulating, right? And this is where we want to pay attention because I don't want to just continue to build it up and in. So while my clay is still kind of movable and pliable and soft, I want to start to think about how it goes. So I'm going to continue to roll out. Just like this. And now that I have my rope pretty even, I'm going to come back in. And because I want this one to start to undulate going out, I'm going to put my coil further on the outside here. And I'm going to tuck it further on the inside on this side, causing it to start to come out on one side and come in on the other. Then I'm going to take my fork and I'm going to follow the process we followed with undulating. Follow the same process we did before, holding it down, blending it up. And what you'll notice is it's starting to come out from one side. Just like this. Now, of course, you're going to have to make it whatever size that you can based off of how much clay you have. So don't start huge if you don't have a lot of clay. You want to use what you have so that you can create it the way that's going to work for the materials you have. Okay? Always keep in mind the amount of materials you have. Now let's just say this is where I want my vessel to be. This is how I want it to be. This is right about where I need it, right? I'm just blending the first coil down into the layer. Just like this. Blend the inside. So what my outside is looking like is this. With this side being the side that's going to start undulating, my inside looks like this. Okay? So now I'm going to just show you how you would go about smoothing the outside. So if you want to smooth the outside, what you're going to do is you're going to come here and you're going to start to smooth out your edges. Just like this. Perfect way to do it is to grab a sponge, a wet sponge, and just smooth out all those edges. And what happens is the sponge begins to move the clay around and it keeps it from looking as a rough, textured surface. Now, if you have too much water, you just wipe it up and you just keep it going. Just like this. Just like this. I'll squeeze my water out. Smooth it out. Rotate it. Smooth it out. Just like this. So now what happens is our outer surface begins to look like this, and our inside remains coils like that. And so that's how you will smooth out all the lines that are created by your fork. Then you can just squeeze off any excess liquid that was created, okay? It may help to also put down some newspapers so that you have a surface that you can work on. And then you just continue the process of building as you go. You'll continue that process. Now, word of advice, I just wet my hand, trying to touch clay. My hands are wet, so now what's happening is the clay is sticking to the surface that I'm trying to roll on. So keep your hands pretty dry during the rolling phase so that you can continue to roll out your coils, okay? And then you're going to just come from here. just like that. And then we would just set up our next layer, just like this. And for this next layer, I'm going to just blend down to blend into that previous layer. And as you can see, we're already starting to undulate. Just that quick, we're already undulating. One side is coming out, one side is coming in, moving in a smooth wave-like motion while we're continuing the coil build, okay? So this is my last piece of clay that I'm gonna do, my last coil, and then I'm going to smooth it all out again, okay? So this is my last coil. I want to pick it up from where I started off. I'm going to come here, and I'm just going to continue to come outward. Just like that. Of course, we're going to blend. Come here, and we're just going to continue to blend. And then now I just blend out all my fork lines, just like this. It's like this. And then work the top somewhere in there. So now I have coming in, and my vessel is starting to undulate. Okay. And just so that you can see, all right, and we're starting to see a little bit of movement on the outside. Now, if you wanted to create more movement, remember your clay is still soft, so you can begin to just mold in, kind of come out, mold in just like that, come up and come out just like this, okay? That we start to build our undulating vessel. Of course, if you want your vessel to be taller, you're just gonna keep adding and adding, following the same steps. Your biggest thing you're gonna need is your fork and your sponge. Smoothing with the sponge and some water, your fork is going to allow you to blend those coils together, all right? And you wanna make sure that you have an area that you can work in where either you can lay paper down, newspapers, magazines, whatever you can lay down to try to contain your area and keep it clean. And then just make sure, just like clay, you wash out your sponge and you wipe down your area. So once my sponge is washed out completely, I begin to wipe down my area that I was working on. Just like this. Make sure that you also have just a bucket to the side where you can kind of wet your hands. Wet your hands in. You can put your pieces of clay Your air dry clay isn't going to necessarily take as much as the clay I'm using today. Okay? And then we just keep moving. Just like that. And that's how you make an asymmetrical undulating coil pot. All right? See you in the class.